When Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious began planning what would ultimately become Order 66 over 3 decades prior to the end of the Clone War, they knew they needed to accomplish 2 very important goals regarding their attack on the Jedi in order to carry out their grand plan of destroying the Jedi Order. First, the action they took against the Jedi had to be executed instantly against every Jedi at the same time, and second, this attack had to succeed, with success being established by eliminating an overwhelming number of Jedi. In other words, the Sith had to annihilate the Jedi Order in a single, decisive action. For this reason, Plagueis and Sidious rejected the initial plan and thoughts of Darth Tenebris, Plagueis' Sith Master, who considered using numerous assassins to attack the Jedi with a virus that separated them from the Force. But Plagueis and Sidious were clear: the Sith Grand Plan could not succeed if the 2 goals mentioned previously were not achieved. Ultimately, as seen in Revenge of the Sith, Order 66 did succeed in both working against the Jedi instantaneously across the galaxy, and it was successful in eliminating the vast majority of Jedi, with only a very few number of survivors. Seeing how Sidious was able to execute Order 66 and how it ultimately played out at the end of the Clone War, it seems as though this success was guaranteed once Sidious established the clone army on Kamino, thereby providing Sidious with an army that he could deploy against the Jedi at any time he thought it was advantageous to do so during the Clone War. However, as we'll see in today's video, merely establishing the clone army, which, although was loyal to him as a component of their initial creation on Kamino, was not enough to ensure the success of Order 66. In fact, the ability for Sidious to carry out the Sith plan to successfully eliminate the Jedi Order through an instantaneous attack across the galaxy that eliminated the vast majority of Jedi would have failed had Sidious executed Order 66 before the Battle of Coruscant seen in Revenge of the Sith. As we'll see, it wasn't until very late in the Clone War, with what turned out to be its final days, where Sidious was provided with the final component necessary to carry out the Sith Grand Plan through Order 66, a plan Sidious waited over 3 decades to carry out. I'll note from the beginning here that for this video, we'll be discussing the Legends version of events, and therefore, there were no biochips in place for Sidious to utilize that would allow him to enable the clone troopers to carry out Order 66. In Legends, Sidious had to rely upon the correct systems and conditions being in place. In this video, we'll discuss how Sidious did that. To begin, our initial question is this: what was it about the Battle of Coruscant that ensured the success of Order 66? Furthermore, why would it have failed in relation to the Grand Plan of the Sith to successfully eliminate the Jedi instantaneously at once across the galaxy, and perhaps even more important for our video here, successfully eliminate an overwhelming majority of Jedi? Where if Order 66 resulted in even a few hundred Jedi remaining, it would be extremely difficult for Sidious and Vader to have viewed it as a success, likely reshaping their actions in the earliest days of the Empire. It's important to first note that Palpatine was the official commander-in-chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, as seen within the Essential Guide to Warfare. However, it's important to also note that it was the Jedi who directly and solely led the 10 systems armies that comprised the Grand Army, as well as the sector armies that made up the systems armies. Not only that, but together with clone commanders, the Jedi led the Grand Army's battalions, regiments, brigades, and corps. This is to say that not only did the Jedi directly work together with the clone troopers on battlefields across the galaxy, but they held significant leadership positions within the Grand Army as well. So, it is established that Palpatine was the commander-in-chief of the Grand Army of the Republic. However, it's necessary to look at the specific wording of Order 66, which states, quote, "In the event of Jedi officers acting against the interests of the Republic, and after receiving specific orders verified as coming directly from the Supreme Commander, GAR commanders will remove those officers by lethal force, and command of the GAR will revert to the Supreme Commander until a new command structure is established." I'll just note that the GAR within the wording of Order 66 stands for Grand Army of the Republic. Therefore, the importance here is clear. Order 66 doesn't specifically use the position of Commander-in-Chief when referring to specific, verified orders regarding Jedi officers acting against the interests of the Republic. It instead uses Supreme Commander. This isn't to say that it would be impossible to assume that it was understood that Palpatine was the Supreme Commander in this regard. Palpatine was the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, he was the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, and the clone troopers were initially created with their loyalty being to Palpatine. However, the language is important. and I believe it was clear that Sidious believed it was important as well. Before explaining why this would be important from Sidious's perspective, I just want to very quickly point out that the specific wording of Order 66 is different within the Legends novel Republic Commando True Colors, and does seem to imply that there was more of a clear designation that the quote Supreme Commander within Order 66 is the Supreme Chancellor, that is Palpatine. However, it's important to note that this isn't the wording found within the Essential Guide to Warfare. Not only that, but it doesn't change the fact that within the Legends lore, the legislative amendments introduced after the Battle of Coruscant that we'll look at next do officially name Palpatine as the Supreme Commander, which is extremely important for this video regarding the success of Order 66. To understand why, let's look at what exactly Sidious did following the Battle of Coruscant. Throughout Palpatine's time as Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, the Sith Lord utilized this position in combination with orchestrating and manipulating galactic events to pass legislation that allowed him to achieve the Sith Grand Plan to destroy the Republic and Jedi. The Essential Guide to Warfare, from the perspective of Cole Skywalker, does a great job of revealing and explaining the important legislation Sidious passed as Supreme Chancellor that ultimately resulted in the Sith successfully destroying the Republic and Jedi Order. For example, two important measures introduced were the Emergency Powers Act and the Military Creation Act, with the former eliminating term limits during the time of the Separatist Crisis, thereby allowing Palpatine to continue to act as the Republic's Supreme Chancellor and providing him with an increased ability to take steps to attempt to end the crisis, and the latter allowing for the creation of a centralized Republic military, giving Palpatine the ability to utilize the clone army created on Kamino during the Clone War. These were then followed by the Enhanced Security Enforcement Act, which eroded many of the rights held by citizens of the Republic during the time of the Separatist Crisis, and then the Reflex Amendment, which provided Palpatine with the ability to increasingly bypass the Senate while leading the Republic's war efforts during the Clone War, which allowed Palpatine to increasingly coordinate not just the Republic's defense forces, but also its industrial production. However, while these measures were instrumental in allowing Palpatine to ultimately carry out the Sith Grand Plan successfully, the actions Palpatine took following the Battle of Coruscant are important for today's video, as they were crucial in regards to the successful execution of Order 66. After the Battle of Coruscant, which saw the Separatists bring the galactic conflict directly to the capital of the Republic, two Security Act amendments were approved by the Senate. The first was the Supreme Command Amendment, and the second was the Judicial Command Amendment. Importantly for our video, these two amendments formally named Palpatine the Supreme Commander of the Republic's armed forces for the entirety of the Clone War. Furthermore, Palpatine was now also the Supreme Commander of the Jedi Order for the remainder of the galactic conflict. Therefore, these Security Act amendments allowed for the creation of an explicit chain of command that was now understood by every clone trooper. Although Palpatine had been the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, there was now no question that he was above the Jedi Order in regards to the chain of command. Not only that, but these amendments were also immensely and directly important regarding Order 66. As previously mentioned, although it could be assumed that Palpatine was the Supreme Commander in relation to the wording of Order 66, there was now no doubt, as the Security Act amendments formally named Palpatine the Supreme Commander. Therefore, regarding the specific wording of Order 66, it was now undeniably Palpatine who could give the orders to the clone troopers to remove any Jedi officers by lethal force who were acting against the interests of the Republic. And even more, in the event that Order 66 would be executed, command of the Grand Army of the Republic would then revert directly to Palpatine until the establishment of a new command structure. Clearly then, the Supreme Command Amendment and the Judicial Command Amendment were instrumental to the success of Order 66, ensuring that there was an explicit chain of command that recognized that Palpatine was at the top, and leaving no doubt that the Supreme Commander within the wording of Order 66 was Palpatine. The Battle of Coruscant, and more correctly the legislative measures that resulted from it, marked a clear delineation in regards to the authority Palpatine had in regards to Order 66. Without this clear, explicit chain of command created through the Security Act amendments, one of Sidious's crucial goals for Order 66, namely that the vast majority of Jedi be eliminated in their instantaneous attack across the galaxy, was threatened. Any confusion surrounding the command structure that was in place at the time Order 66 was executed potentially threatened Sidious's goal and the success of Order 66. I have a few examples from within the Legends lore that demonstrate why it would be important for Sidious to establish an explicit chain of command as was accomplished through the Security Act amendments. But I'm going to end the video here because it's already getting long. I'll do a separate video discussing and explaining these examples to argue how this topic was important from the perspective of the clone troopers themselves. This video attempted to demonstrate that the Battle of Coruscant finally gave Sidious the ability to create an explicit chain of command that made him the Supreme Commander, thereby benefiting him significantly given the wording of Order 66 and subsequently lowering the potential for the Order to have failed, resulting from any confusion surrounding the chain of command. However, this upcoming video will provide specific examples from the perspective of the clone troopers themselves that show how important the chain of command established by Sidious was, and how widespread confusion regarding this chain of command, particularly without the Security Act amendments, seriously threatened Sidious's goals with Order 66, with its failure being a potential outcome. So there we have it, why Order 66 would have failed if it was executed before the Battle of Coruscant. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me... For Darth Plagueis.